People, all right, for those of you in the know, and some of you are, some of you aren't, I don't need to introduce this person. It's Jane Friedman. Really, I don't know. I can't think of anybody in the publishing world who's more sort of tapped into the business of publishing than Jane. Jane, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Well, I'm glad to be talking to you. I'm going to say I learned about you in a most unusual manner when my book Fearless Writing published. The day it was published, all this things started appearing on my Twitter feed with people quoting my book, and I was like, "What the hell's going on? Why are these people doing this? I had not heard of you." And then I learned that you had featured Fearless Writing on your fabulous blog, The Bottom Line, and it did help that book do very well. So thank you for that. And that was my introduction to you. And but I knew you existed long before you shared that. So uh, how did this all start for you? Uh, were you a writer when you were a young person, or just a devout reader? What were you when you before you became what you are now?
Yes, I was a reader. My mother was a teacher and a librarian when I was growing up. And so that certainly, you know, uh, influenced me, I think it's fair to say.
Yeah.
And in school, I was good at all subjects, but I definitely leaned more towards the English classes and the humanities. And then when I went into college, I majored in creative writing.
You did. Okay.
Yeah.
So you went there, you majored in creative writing, uh, and then you graduated. I assume.
I
Hey,
I
I
did.
did not. I said I've had it with this higher education and struck out on my own, but I assume you strike me as someone who graduated.
I did, in fact, graduate, yes.
Okay.
And while I was still in school, I secured an internship with a mid-sized publisher in Cincinnati. And so when I graduated, I was fortunate that they extended me a full-time job as an editor, which I took.
Now that mid-sized publisher wouldn't be Writer's Digest because I know they're in Ohio.
It was F&W Publications,
F&W. Yeah, yeah.
which is the corporate owner of Writer's Digest. So
Yeah.
I didn't start out working with Writer's Digest. I began in another division of the company. But I did end up at Writer's Digest, of course.
So okay, so you get a job as an editor. Uh, did you like it? What did you think of that? That's
Yeah.
different than writing. Creative writing is one thing, editing somewhat different. What did you think of that?
Uh, I really enjoyed it. It was strictly nonfiction editing. So, and it was quite different from the sort of things I did in school. Like there's really
Right.
almost no relationship. So like, quaint birdhouses you can paint and decorate, the art of painting animals on rocks, so lots of
Yes.
craft books that I
Yeah.
was working on.
Yeah. Because F&W, when they existed, that's they did Writer's Digest, but they had all these sort of craft
Hmm.
hobby sort of
Hmm.
things. Okay.
Right.
And so you're editing that, but so you're editing stuff that probably you might or not be interested in yourself. I mean, the hobbies are what they
Right.
are. So
Right.
did you find that at all an obstacle, or was just the sheer act of trying to polish things up and and help them along, was that interesting enough to keep you engaged?
I mean, I found the business part of that job fascinating, which of course has influenced where I've
Yes.
ended up. And, I it was just a trial by fire in some regards because I was put on something called Special Projects Team,
Ooh,
which
sounds dangerous.
right, which was essentially my boss's way of looking at new markets where we might publish books. And
Okay.
so he had me researching various areas like stenciling or polymer clay or like, areas where we should be
Right.
producing new things and finding authors to author those things. And so when I
Uh-huh.
brought my research back and created projects with authors attached, I had to convince a publishing board that this was going to be worthwhile. So it was, I thought it was a lot of fun. And it's certainly
Wow.
not how, I have to clarify, this is not how most publishers work.
Well, but that particular kind of publisher, it makes sense. They're almost
Yeah.
like a magazine saying,
Yes.
with editors saying, "Hey, I need something on, you
Hmm.
know, well, so for instance, where Editor's Digest magazine still exists, which is nice, and
Yes.
they will put out, we're going to publish on this, and we want to focus on that, and we want to focus. So they go looking, and so. It's true. It's not how most publishers, I assume, operate, but there is the issue of a market,
Mhm.
and which is always, I think, somewhat mysterious, honestly, in terms of. I always say nobody knew there was a market for boy wizard books until Harry Potter was published. So the people, people know and people don't know. So,
Yeah.
but you got, and this is critical, and I cannot stress this enough, my friends who are listening. Jane was interested. You got interested. Um, and that interest has extended to where you are now. And not everybody who was asked to do that job would have been interested in it. They would have maybe said, "Ugh, I got a novel I'm working on. I don't want to do this." But you
Right.
actually took a kind of, I would call it creative interest, even. Is that fair?
I, yeah, that is absolutely fair. I mean, I did want to get out of the crafts research market, um,
Right.
which I did. Um, and of course, I knew going into this company that it was the Writer's Digest company, and I had
Right.
designs on shifting over in that direction. But I still found, I mean, all of the publishing work I did was so informative and I stoked my curiosity.
It must have. It must have. And because I think of you, I was thinking about this interview a little bit beforehand, and I thought Jane is really I feel like the writer's guide into the world of publishing, because it is probably the best person who's taken on that job to
Mhm.
guide us uh, into that world. Because, if you're someone who's a creative writer exclusively, the business side is not something you're probably thinking about at all until
Right.
you. And honestly, you, in a way, and this may go against what you preach, but I don't think you should be thinking about it until that book is done. I think it can gum up the writing
Yeah.
process. At some point, you got to think about it. But,
Yeah.
people who are thinking about it in the first chapter, I think they'll never finish the book, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think it can be very confusing for
Yeah.
people to, it will easily derail you if you get too obsessed with the business and the market before you've even really written your first chapter.
Yeah, very much. So you're young, so you're in your 20s probably working at
Mhm.
F&W, and what was the first thing that surprised you about the business side of it that you didn't understand was as important as it was?
I mean, it just never entered my mind that I would have to come up with evidence of need for a book, or
And
that
did
was
anybody
even.
tell you how to do that, or did they just say, just go find me a market, or did you have to do it on your own?
I had a really great boss and mentor who we wrote up these things called PI sheets, stands for Project Information Sheet, which is a really pithy, like 2 to 3 page document that sets out the business case for a book. It's like a condensed book
Yeah,
proposal,
that's what it
basically.
sounds like to me. Yeah.
Yeah, and I remember vividly writing some of my first PI sheets, and my boss, hands on, we sat in his office and he marked them up
Wow.
and improved them. And so that, this it's both a creative exercise to try and present this vision of something that's compelling and is exciting, but you also have to get that market analysis in there that
Right.
provides evidence and helps reassure, the bean counters this will be a good investment.
The bean counters. Yeah.
Mm.
All right. We will love them too. Okay. So, but eventually you do move over to Writer's Digest. And as I understand it, you were at some point in charge of their social media.
Hmm.
Is that true?
That's
That
true.
was part
Yeah.
of your evolution, right?
When I was leading the brand, because eventually everything under the Writer's Digest brand got put under me. So it
Did
became
it?
what,
You
yeah.
were
So
you.
the company used to be when in its early days, well, for most of its history, uh, it was divided up into magazines, books, education,
Right.
clubs, etc.
Yeah.
And that actually created people working for the same brand, sometimes working at cross purposes with each other. Like they didn't
Right.
communicate. The books didn't
Got it.
communicate with the magazine, with the competitions, with the education, which to me
Right.
was really bizarre. So you get different marching orders from different divisions, and they're not sharing resources or even tips on who to work with.
Wow.
So during my tenure, the company reorganized into communities, and so I was put in charge of the community of writing products or Writer's Digest.
Right.
And so that was during the aughts when that
Hmm.
happened. And
Yeah.
that's right at the time when social media was starting to pick
Yes.
up and be
Just.
recognized as
Yeah.
a thing.
Yeah.
And so I started, like, I was, yet again, I was very curious about this. And so I went ahead and started the Facebook presence for
Hmm.
Writer's Digest, the brand. I started the Twitter presence, and began building.
Yeah. Yeah. And so this was, boy, that was in its infancy because I remember I got onto Facebook probably right at the beginning, kind of at the because I was invited. I tried MySpace,
Mm.
and then I moved over to Facebook, and it was still pretty raw at that point. I think
Yeah,
this would have been around 2008, which I think it was still
that's
kind of
right.
newish, at that.
Yes, it was. It
Yeah.
was.
All right. And so, did you see social media as a legitimate place to communicate with the readers? Did it
Oh
strike you
gosh,
as
yeah, a
yeah,
thousand
right away?
percent. Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, it was probably the most powerful thing to happen to my career,
Yeah.
not just at Writer's Digest, but generally speaking, it's what gave me visibility and a platform that I didn't have before,
Yeah.
because publishing is very New York centric, for better or worse.
Sure.
And I was essentially invisible to that community until social media came around and allowed me from my perch in Cincinnati to be able to have conversations with others in the industry, with readers, etc.
Right. Okay. And so yeah, so I think I must have been published. I must have gotten, well, I can't remember when I published Fearless Writing, but so you eventually move off on your own and you start and well, I don't know, you started The Bottom Line. Was that your first big solo project?
No.
No.
Well,
I mean,
that that project started out as a partnership and it's now solo. But prior to that, I started another digital publication called Scratch.
mhm.
This was during the heyday of apps, like magazine apps,
Yeah.
which have all shuttered at this point. And that was about the intersection of art and money. And it lasted about 2 or 3 years. And my business partner and I, we went our separate ways. And then not long after that is when I launched the paid newsletter, The Bottom Line.
Yeah. And it's a good one, people. It is a good one. Well, there's your pay note, then there's your blog, which is where my agent's always sending me. Go find out what Jane say. Go find out what Jane say. And so she is a fan of yours also. So all right, so you're a bit of a guru. I would call you a bit, if you don't mind that term, around this kind of stuff. What is when you started wanting to educate writers about the business? What were some of the biggest and you I always because I write nonfiction, I get sent articles on platform and proposals,
Mhm.
blah blah blah,
Yeah.
platform market
Yeah.
proposals. But obviously, a lot of fiction writers too. Do you consider yourself an equal opportunity teacher in that regard, or do you lean towards the nonfiction?
As far as my audience, it's everyone.
Yeah,
I'm not necessarily focusing on one genre or category.
yeah,
Personally, like the things that I enjoy reading and the things that I like to share are nonfiction. So I'm not a fiction writer myself,
right,
really nonfiction oriented.
right, okay. And so, as a teacher, uh, what are your whether through writing or because I know you do some great workshops through AIM, they're called now.
Mhm.
Um, what is what is like the biggest thing you feel like is consistently needed by the writing community that you because I have my stuff on my end, which is emotional, but yours is
Mhm.
very business. What is the thing you consistently see that these poor, well-intentioned, tender folks need?
Well, it actually might not be so different from what you focus on because the longer I'm in the business, the more I feel like there's some serious psychological stumbles
Yes,
at the
yes, a
very opening
thousand
that,
times yes.
yeah, it subverts anything you
Totally.
do from that point on. But to kind of narrow that up a bit, I think there are a lot of psychological hurdles related to the business where people assume that they're not good at it, that it means betraying your values, that good art doesn't make money,
Yes.
not true.
Yes.
And so there are all of these kind of mythologies floating around, or anxieties about what it
Yeah.
means to engage in good business.
So
Yeah, I'm constantly addressing
here,
that.
I want to throw this by you since I really do. I have so much respect for what you do, and I think it's great to have a kind person doing what you're doing, and I think that you are. And so, but when I talk to people about the sort of business side of it, what I encourage them to think of it as a conversation. Like you're having a conversation. What's the but you got to define the conversation,
Right,
so they know whether they want to join it or not. And
right,
that, and I found that helpful because that way the writers who don't see themselves as business people a lot of
right,
times can say, "Oh, I do want to invite people for. I don't want to sell something. I want to invite them." Does that
right.
make sense?
Yes, I'm always trying to reframe marketing and promotion in exactly those terms.
I will tell my agent that I know a few things after all. That's good. Well, but it's so true because most of us aren't good salespeople in the sort of Donald Trumpian sense, right? I mean,
Right.
we're communicators, and so that's good. And so so this is interesting to me, Jane. I didn't know that you've your awareness of the psychological challenges of the
Mm.
business has evolved. And when did that start becoming clear to you, or becoming clearer and clearer to you?
Oh gosh. I mean, I would say going back to 2015, 2016.
Yeah.
But I don't think that I really put it in writing or tried to have a more concerted effort around that until the latest edition of my book, which came out in the spring.
This spring. Oh, it was this spring.
Yeah.
So tell
Yeah.
us, the readers, tell us the listeners, so they can run out and buy it right now.
The Business of Being a Writer, second edition.
That's right. Go get it, people.
Yeah.
Go get it. Can't go wrong. Because I always say, I actually think people are born in a way confident in this one way, but they're not born knowing how to to publish a book. No one is
Yeah.
born knowing how to write a query letter or how to, you got to learn it. You got to
Yeah.
learn it,
Yeah.
And so, do you still enjoy teaching people? You've been doing it a while about
Oh,
this. Do you
yeah.
still like it? Does it still excite you? Do you still get up for it?
Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't be here. At least I
Well,
don't
I
think
don't
I
know.
would
You got
be
to make a
if I
living,
didn't enjoy
right?
it.
Okay. Well, that's good. I'm glad you said that because there are people, a lot of the people I will work with as clients are like, well, I'm a doctor. I'm still doing it, but I'd really like to. So they can do things they don't. I always say you can't. The thing about writing that's different than so many other professions is you actually have to love doing it to have any hope of success. Whereas you can
Yeah.
not really like being a lawyer, but make a buttload of money doing it. It's the nature of the work. I don't know.
Yeah.
So you do got to love it. So Jane is going to be at the Pacific Northwest Writers Association for our yearly conference. Sadly, I will not be there. I will be at a different conference, but Jane will be there, and she will be, well, first of all, you will be speaking on Sunday, the sort of grand finale.
Mm.
I don't know on what. Uh, I don't know. Maybe we should. I don't know. You can give a sneak peek. You may not know yet, and that's fine too. Uh, but you'll be doing some workshops too, probably, or panels or something. Do you know?
I am doing a workshop. I want to say it's on how to make a living through the creator economy, if I'm not mistaken, which is essentially most careers are not built on book sales alone. There are a lot of other
Right.
revenue streams that come into play,
Yes.
like teaching or
Yes.
education. And so
Yeah.
I'll be talking about the different things that you can consider as you wait for your book sales to match your dreams.
That is excellent. Yes, totally agree. I see everything I do is kind of, it all feeds into the same sort of thing, whether it's books or workshops or
Mhm.
clients or whatever. All right. So you've got the business of being a, God, I'm sorry, I get the
Yeah.
title, Business of Being a Writer. Okay, good.
Mhm.
Second edition. Do you have another book in the hopper, in your mind, in
No,
your
I,
imagination? No?
I, I, in fact, don't like writing books. It's a lot
What?
of work.
Oh my. Hey, thank you. Thank you for being honest. Okay, so you don't like do it, but do you like writing articles? Do you like
Oh
writing
yeah, I like
essays?
writing. Just don't
Okay.
ask me to write a book.
But isn't a book just a collection of short pieces? Can't you see it, or is it harder for you
Oof.
mentally to see it that way?
Oh, it's harder for me. I mean, this last book that I just released is like 120,000 words. And when you get
What?
to that length,
What?
it's, juggling a lot of like what's the through line here? How do I take people through it? What deserves more
Wow.
explanation? It's just a
Yeah.
lot. It's a
It's
lot.
true. It's a 120,000 words. Ye gads. That's like three of my books. You can adjust your page length and you do a little better. All right. And so book it's if you'd have to do another one, if someone said, "Hey, can we collect all your essays into a book?" Would you say yeah?
I mean, sure, if someone else wants to do it, I
Yeah.
wouldn't say no.
All right. So do you ever work with like clients one-on-one, or is it purely just giant workshops?
I used to, but that work phased out in 2020 just because I wanted more time to do my own writing and
Yeah.
education.
Were you like doing editing and that kind of thing, or just helping people with their business side of it?
Yeah, the latter. It was a lot of consulting around what next steps should I take for my publishing career, or I really need a come to Jesus on this proposal or this query.
Right.
What's gone wrong?
Right. All right. So, as a nonfiction person, and nonfiction is, I have to admit, Jane, when I moved from fiction to nonfiction, which is where I'm now, the thing that pissed me off the most was the proposal. I was like,
Mm,
what the hell is this? Because in fiction, you just say, here's the book,
yep.
read it, and tell me what you think. But for nonfiction, for whatever reason, they had the proposal. I have overcome my resistance to it and have written and sold a few books. But what is the what is the thing that you feel like writers most consistently misunderstand about the proposal, or yeah, like fail to understand about it?
The biggest mistake I see is focusing the proposal on what the book is about, the content of the book, rather than why readers will want it or what purpose it's serving in the
Right.
market. Obviously, you have to talk about the content while addressing those
But
issues,
those two
but
things are related if the writer can learn to see it. To me, they
right,
absolutely are related, but they don't see it. They have
yes,
trouble seeing it that way.
right.
You know what the big thing I've been leaning into with this is the importance of apparent contradiction. In other words,
Mm,
finding the thing about your book that seems impossible, that will be seem most unlikely that you're going to show
mhm,
them is true. Does that make
mhm.
sense?
Yes, there's actually an article I often recommend to people. They can find it if they look for Eric Nelson on LinkedIn. It's called The Secret to Getting Agents and Editors Excited about your book, something
Okay.
like that. And he
I'm
talks
sorry.
about,
Every time I hear the word secret, my ears start
well,
burning. But okay, I get it.
I
I
know
get it. I get it. I get it.
he's not trying to be
No,
smarmy.
I understand. I
Um,
understand.
so the essential message is great nonfiction books tend to act like a switch.
It's
Like delete Twitter, invade
yeah,
Iraq, don't have lunch alone. So you take this one small thing that maybe people don't think is important, and you say, this is the thing. This is the thing that explains success or
right,
what
right.
behavior you should have.
But I do think there's something to that I usually am looking for the thing that is not apparent that
Yeah.
that would surprise people that I'm going to sort of let me show you why this, with the fearless writing, it was like you don't have to care what people think about your stuff when that seems like such a like everything to some degree. And so I kind
Yeah.
of I give all the reasons you thought it should, and I flip, and I keep doing that. And I do think it's a really helpful way to get people's attention in a way that's not
Mhm.
manipulative,
Yeah.
and then lead them to the understanding. So I've become a bit of a, but I came to it the way I come to everything, which is by trial and error. It's the only
Mm.
way I can do anything. All right, so that's one of the biggest things is they don't see it as they think only what's the book's about and
Yeah.
not well, this doesn't surprise me, Jane, because if you've been at writers' conference, like the worst thing you can do is ask a writer, "What's your book about?" And you could be there for another half an hour,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
And but they love them. They've been so. And do you ever like? I've taught pitching, and it occurred to me. What do you think of this? That the query letter is very hard to write because unlike a poem or a romance novel or even a self-help book, you may have read those things. But no one until they write a query letter has read a query letter and
Yeah.
it's a weird form of communication. Does that make sense?
Yes. It does. Yeah.
And so how do you learn how to write a thing that you've never read before?
I try to solve that problem for
Yeah.
writers. I have a section of my book's website It's a supplemental resources tab where I have about 3 dozen query letters that led to agent representation or a book deal because I
Yeah.
do think it's important for people to understand what these things look like.
Yeah, it's because it's a but and I think one of the hardest things I can say as a writer is like I it's 2 paragraphs, man. I got 2 paragraphs that, to sum it all up. And I don't think, the book is huge and it goes on and on and all the characters, but that's what you have to do. I
I tell, yeah,
What do
I
you
mean, I
tell them?
tell
What do you tell people who
writers
say, I don't like it? What do you say?
it's a seduction tool.
Ooh,
So,
I like that.
it's like when you sit down with a first date, if you spill out your entire life story, that person's going to run in the other direction. So it's not a dissimilar dynamic when you have a query letter.
Oh, I
So
like it, Jane. I
you
like
just
it.
include the bits that you think are going to be most attractive.
See, now this is interesting to me because what has in conference pitching have the modus operandi for many is the speed pitching, which of
Mhm.
course was borrowed from speed dating, wasn't it?
Yes.
Yes, it was. And I do think there is a kind of similarity to like the agent can know pretty quick if you're in the ballpark, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
If you would go out on a date, so to speak, you kind of know right away.
Yeah. And I would say there are two key dynamics happening in a query or in a pitch in person, like a speed dating situation. There's both the content or the substance of what you're saying, like the story premise, but there's also the charm or the confidence in which it's
Yes.
delivered.
Yes.
And unfortunately, writers sometimes get so nervous or anxious or they're trying to cram it all in and they kind of fail on the charm and the confidence part.
Well, this I sometimes think pitching was a an exercise designed in hell for writers because so many of them. Look, I'm a little better that way just because of the way I'm oriented. But I get it with a lot of writers. They're shyer people. They
Yeah.
like to be alone. And then
Right.
pitching is just a way to suddenly get up in their own heads about it.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
you've
I
probably
know.
have you ever had to do it? Where you actually sit there across from an agent pitching something that you wrote?
I haven't had to pitch, but I have been on the receiving end, of course.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, I think I might pity you even more than the writers. Just well, but you had to pitch your stuff to didn't you have to do some pitches to like the sales teams and stuff at
oh,
the
of course,
and
of
it's
course.
similar, but it's different, but it's a little in the same kind of in the same. It's not your own stuff, but still.
Right. Certainly in my early days of, pitching to a pub board, I was really, really nervous.
Yeah.
But
How'd
as
you
the
deal
more
with
you do it, I mean, I didn't deal with it. You don't really have a choice, do you? But you
you
get
know?
better with
Well, you
as
could
you
run
do more of
away.
it.
You could call in sick. You could say, I'm going to become a seamstress or anything you could. But no, yeah, you sucked it up and you learned and you got less nervous. Okay. Because that's how you are. All right. Well, I cannot tell you how glad I am to hear that you are focusing, I don't know, in the workshops even on the many emotional and psychological, and I would even dare I say spiritual challenges to writing. I think it's I think the thing I love about writing is I think when I would teach it is that whether people go on to write their books or not, they are learning something so important about being conscious and how they think and caring about themselves and caring about what they care about that translates to every aspect of their life. And I think in that way, writing is a fantastic practice to teach you how to be to live an authentic life, I would say. And I stand by that. I stand by that. But Jane, so I am so sorry I'm not going to be there. You and I were at Irma Palooza.
Ah,
I got to say hello to you, which was very nice. But so that was the only time I've run into you in person. So I'm sorry I'm not going to be there. It would have been a lot of fun to get to chat with you. But so I'm glad we got to do so now. But I'm not quite through with you, my dear. I have one more question. How shall I say this? Usually the question is, what has writing taught you about life? But what has the business of working with writers
mm.
and publishers, this weird intersection of art and commerce and just, so much of the person is invested in their work. What has it taught you about life and about being a person?
That it's a lot of people ask me, am I going to succeed? There's a lot of seeking, like reassurance seeking,
Yes.
validation
Yeah.
seeking.
Yeah.
And, I don't like being put on the spot like that, but I've learned over the years of being put on the spot like that, that I can tell who has talent, but I can't necessarily say who's going to succeed because I don't know who's going to improve. So there's
Right.
in writing in particular, and I would argue for all creative fields, there's a process of improvement that takes place. And some people will go through that and others just short circuit for whatever reason.